you, gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Buenos dias. Yes, that's the best I can do. And that is the only Portuguese slide in the entire presentation today. Sorry. Listen, I want to, first off, your paycheck is not at risk at all. When you do events like this, what do you think, everybody? Yeah? Yeah. Listen, I love to come to Sao Paulo. I love to come to Brazil. And Fabiano, I might add also, very good-looking crowd. Very good. Listen, how many of you are marketers? Do the role of marketing, actually work as marketers. Good show of hands. Okay. Oh, wow. Okay. This presentation is for you today. This is for you. I'm going to tell you, what Fabiano asked me to do was to tell you how the MMA does what it does. And I thought, well, that seems boring to me. That's kind of internally looking. That's just about us, which I don't like to share with you what we do. Who cares about that? I mean, you're members, many of you are members, and we appreciate your support in that. But fundamentally, as I wrote the presentation, I went, oh my God, I'm not writing a presentation about what the MMA does. I'm actually writing a presentation about what you marketers need to do. And I didn't get that until honestly quite yesterday as I was putting sort of the finishing touches on this. Now listen, I'm going to assume that all of you are here for this reason. How many of you 10 years ago read a newspaper? Come on, show of hands. How many of you read a newspaper today? Yeah. I have twin 17-year-old daughters. They have never seen a newspaper. They don't know what it is. They have no idea, except to the degree it might line a pet cage of some kind. That's it. The world has changed dramatically. They also have figured out that this device matters a lot to them. Some of you have teenagers in your households? Yes, right? Unbelievable. Unbelievable. It's as if it's sort of placed exactly this distance from their face permanently. Like if they move their hand, it would float there, it feels like. So here's the thing, right? The world has changed, but how do we organize to do that? How do we figure out where to go? And I'll tell you, now having done digital media for 20 years now, yes, I'm at least that old and more, I've had a perspective, and so this presentation is in some regard a sort of homage to that. So here's what I want to tell you. Who is the MMA? Because it sets a tone for where we go and what we do, and sort of leads into the rest of what I want to share. But then I wanted to talk to you, as Fabio had asked, what does it take to build a brand new channel? But most importantly, how do you extract value, and what does that mean to you as a marketer? Now, if you haven't seen this, this is a good selection of some number of the 800 members of the MMA around the world. We operate and have staff in 12 countries. If you didn't know, we run events in 15 countries at this point. We are in total about 50 employees, give or take a little bit. Half of those exist outside the US. We hope to believe that we are working with some of the world's greatest marketers to figure out fundamentally this, our purpose, which is to accelerate the transformation and innovation of marketing through mobile. Isn't that funny? Mobile doesn't even come in until 10 words into our mission statement. And it's all about business growth, and it's all about consumer engagement, and I'll talk more about that. But here is the most important slide I'll show you. Having done a number of trade groups, been involved with them, now run 2 of them in my career, these are the people who back the decisions that we make. These are the people who tell us what to do. The CMO of General Motors, the CMO of T-Mobile, the CMO of Allstate, the CMO of Chobani, the CMO of Samsung, Dunkin' Brands, the head of market LATAM Air, wherever Ernesto is, somewhere. The CBO, the Chief Brand Officer, JP Morgan, et cetera, et cetera. In total, of that board table, $17 billion to spend sits there. And it's not just an idle $17 billion. It's the person who writes the check. Writes my check, but writes the check for marketing. We're complemented by also having the Chief Revenue Officer of Facebook, of Snapchat, and the President of at least Google North America, and a number of other CEOs. They collectively take in $125 billion of marketing spend. We have some clout. We have some power. And some of what I wanted to share with you today is what are we doing with that? What can we do with that as a collective device, both in the US, which is where I reside in New York City, and across the world as the MMA operates to create change. Now, all of those brands are with us for this very reason. Mobile is likely the greatest consumer change we will see in our lifetime. Now, some of you are young. Maybe that's not true. Maybe you have another bite at the apple. I know for me, I've never seen anything this dramatic. But let's get into it here. Let me talk about what it takes to build a channel, and therefore, what do we think you need to do? Now, as I sat down to think that through a couple of days ago, I said, well, what are the elements? Well, first off, you have to understand what is the unique selling proposition of that channel. What do you do? What is its positioning? What is its role in your overall strategy? I'll talk more about that. What is the economic value? Is the return on investment? Does mobile even make sense? I know we use it, but remember, it's a very small screen. Does that work? Do advertisers, can they create impact? Do consumers care? Will they respond? Does it change their attitudes? Does it change their behavior? Does it influence sales? And once we get through that first question, then we have to ask ourselves, how do we get it right? How do we make sure we're using it optimal? We had a study done with Coca-Cola where they ran one video ad that they had copied from TV. They ran it all across mobile. And I said to them, I said, Coke, I says, do you realize that you have run the most highly personalized targeted channel in the world as if it was a mass TV campaign? And they looked at me and they said, oh, we shouldn't have done that? I said, no, you've missed the biggest opportunity. So I'll share some of that with you today. You got to get creative right. If you do not know how to communicate to consumers in this environment, you're also challenged, troubled, missed opportunity. The single greatest return on investment is marketing. What is it? It's creative. Because it's just time investment. Oh, sure, maybe you have to hire a new creative team. Maybe you want to get another exploratory. But relative to the sums of money we spend in media and marketing to communicate that message, it's nothing. Nothing compared to the return on investment that we can get from just getting the advertising communication correct. Now, this issue is why I'm here today. This is the most important thing I'm going to tell you today. So I'm going to leave it for later. And finally, if your organization is not ready to adapt, I guarantee you, you've maybe missed the opportunity. You might be dead as a result of it. So, let's talk about positioning to start a little bit. A few years ago, we hired Jim Stingle, the CMO of Procter & Gamble, to apply that perfect Procter & Gamble positioning process. And he came back and said the unique attribute of mobile is that it is the closest you can get to your consumer. You all know the stats, right? On average, you look at this screen 150 times a day. A reporter asked me recently, they said, Greg, what is the value of building an app? And I said, let me ask you, given that your primary opportunity is getting in front of the consumer as many times in a day as possible, your fight to become the app that sits on my first screen, the screen that I see every time I open this thing, how valuable is that? How much would you invest into that opportunities? $1 million? 10 million? 100 million? Maybe. It's that big a deal. Because the people and the companies that matter to me are right there. Maybe the second screen, but for sure, that first screen. If you are not there, you don't matter to me as a marketer, as a company who's trying to do business with me. Mobile is clearly the closest you can get. It's with us. You know the stats, right? 80% of you, it's the last thing you see at night. It's the first thing you see in the morning, even versus your significant other. 70% of people, is this true in Brazil? 70% of people use their phones while in the bathroom. Okay, you didn't have to put your hand up. Thank you. That was brave. That was brave. I like that. I like that about their exuberance in Brazil. In fact, mobile does so much more. There are about 40-some-odd sensors in a phone that tell us new insights and new perspectives. In fact, I thought this is an ad from Sprint in America that I thought sort of best captured.
I can watch live TV on my new Sprint phone.
Well, my Sprint phone has TV and downloads music.
I can check email.
I have that. And crime deterrent.
What?
Try and take my wallet.
Give me your...
Live TV, wireless music downloads, email, and crime deterrent.
I'm filing a grievance, Ben.
Okay. How many of you have crime deterrent on your phone? Yes? Oh, not as many here. I'm surprised. Okay. So listen, you get the idea, right? It takes a lot to understand just the basic strategy. How do you want to connect? What I see from some of my marketer members, my board members, is they're building loyalty programs where that never existed before. They're building in payment mechanisms so they know who I am, that they can feed back and give me information. I have not held a paper airline ticket in probably 4 years now. Why would I? I can never find it anyway. I don't know where it is. Don't make me carry paper. Don't. Allow me to connect with you immediately. I had an issue with my phone service yesterday. Boom, on the app, connected. T-Mobile called me right back here in Brazil. Amazing. Amazing. I didn't have to go look up the phone number. I didn't have to figure out how to connect with them. It was all right there. Now, some of you know that we developed a project called SMOX. SMOX stands for Smart Mobile Cross-Marketing Effectiveness. It's a series of consortium studies of which we now have spent about $3 million. Now, SMOX Wave 1 was really focused on just trying to understand mobile's return on investment versus other channels. We have now done 10 campaigns from these brands in those countries: China, UK, Brazil, and US. No, I'm sorry, US is not Coca-Cola land, it's US. Sorry. I know where I'm from, sorry. I looked at it and it's sort of like, no, we did a study in Brazil, of which Tom Daly from Coca-Cola and I presented last year. I think it was this exact same event. Now, those of you who maybe don't know, these are multimedia campaigns. We measure the effectiveness of TV, radio, magazines, internet, and mobile within the marketing mix. We can isolate those values. And I won't take time to explain the methodology to you, but understand that it is perfect design using an approach called experimental design. If there's anyone in research, if you would nod your heads, experimental design is the gold standard of research methodologies. Anybody? No researchers. I didn't see enough heads. Okay, well, I'll tell you it is. I've heard that enough and I've used that enough. These are the studies we've done and the campaigns that they ran. Now, the first thing we learned from those studies was that when we look at the value and return on investment in mobile in either brand basis, change in attitude, or actual sales relative to the average of the campaign. So if the campaign was TV, radio, magazines, etc., internet, compared to just mobile on its own, mobile was twice as valuable. 2x the return on investment. If you spend reals into mobile versus into TV, that mobile will produce twice the impact. Twice as many people that are aware, twice as many people who heard the message, twice as many people who have purchase intent, twice as many sales. It's that binary. Remember, it's experimental design. It's perfect. We know it for a fact. It's real marketing. This is not in a lab. This is not made up. I can go on and on about the methodology, but that's what it does. So much so that then when you optimize your marketing campaign for the bulk of these studies, you should be spending somewhere between 10 to 15% of total marketing budgets in mobile, and that produces, we've seen anywhere from a 4 to 15% increase in sales. How many of you know exactly what you could do today to produce a 15% increase in sales in your business? Exactly. You should hear. I'll ask the question again. How many of you know today how you can produce 15% increase in sales? Yes? There, mobile. There we go. Thank you. Now you know. No capital expenditures, no additional spending. Got to produce some additional creative work. It's got to be right. But that's really all that it takes. So now that's good, right? That's a start. We now understand the value of the choices we make. But here's the issue. Now we got to get it right. And this will be the first of what will be one of the most important things I think I tell you today. Now, you have a lot of choices within mobile. The number one question I often get from people is, like, they go, what is mobile? Well, we've segmented it. It's mobile display, mobile social, mobile audio, mobile native, mobile video. Just shortens the discussion. We did not measure search in these studies for a variety of reasons. Doesn't matter. But search is not in here, just so you know. Now, here's the first thing we found out that some of you have probably heard, that when we take the impact, or we take, actually, we'd start with the left. When we take the cost of mobile video relative to TV, it's about half the cost on a CPM basis. But cost is only one element. What's the impact? What's the impact of that little tiny screen in creating change? In this case, this is for Walmart, so this would have been against a purchase intent. So in creating the change, the consumer says, next time I shop, in this case for whatever it was at Walmart, I will go to Walmart, right? That they say that's their intention. We also did against sales. We saw the same kind of data. What we found is that the effectiveness of that little channel, unbelievable. 5x versus TV, 10x on a price basis. Mobile video was priced at 50% of its real value. If you could buy as much mobile video today as you could, you should. Because that pricing will change. The more you buy, the more the pricing changes, obviously. That changes market dynamics. That's what will happen here. But nonetheless, huge, huge opportunity. We also found not just that mobile video really worked, but this is part of the reason it worked, is because it produces all of its value in 2 to 3 ads, and that's it. You don't need to keep running. Now, consumers forget, so you need to run ads again at some point. But to create the ultimate conversion, different than how TV does, TV, it takes 12 to 15 ads to create that same level of impact. That's because nobody's paying attention to TV. Right? You all know that. You know how you operate with it. If you understand how it gets measured, that's what's happening. But here, because I watch it like this, it changes everything. It changes the impact. Okay. Now, here's where it gets complicated, and this was the thing I want to tell you. We've now started to do new studies. We have a new study that's also just coming out. We started to look at the data. We haven't shared it publicly. And we just put out a new study a week ago from Allstate. There's a big change happening, and we didn't kind of see this coming. And I'm sorry to tell you that it's harder than we thought. That's the problem. Mobile's more challenging than we realized. Those of us like me who were raised in advertising for decades, I used to be able to look at an ad and determine its value. I can't do this. Case in point, this Unilever campaign for Magnum ice cream bar, okay? Here's the performance of it. So we looked at the whole campaign, 100, right? We just indexed at 100. That ad, in trying to change brand awareness, works 75% better. That's good, right? 75% better. I'm happy with that performance. The problem is that that same exact ad, on a sales basis, produced 0 sales. I know it for a fact. The campaigns are in market, I measure isolated impact, and I'm able to track that exactly back to what they bought in store. For a fact, we know it. 0. That ad didn't work. Now, I would have looked at that and said, wow, that ad's great, but it didn't work. Now, here's what's interesting. When we layer in weather data on that ad, we do see a small increase in awareness. Awareness went from a 70 plus 75% to double its actual impact. That's great. On a sales basis, 50% more. That ad was worthless until I attached data to it. How could I have figured that out? How could I have known that from looking at the actual ad itself? I never would have gotten that. And yet that's how advertising, we had an issue a number of years ago. We worked with J&J. I'll name names on this one. It's been long enough. Working with J&J, and we went to them and we said, what's it take to get an ad approved? And they go, well, we showed the ad to 9 different people within the agency and the marketer, the client. 9 people. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of you had to look at that ad before it got approved to go out the door. And we said, well, on what basis do they make that decision? They go, well, they look at it. And we go, well, we just checked. We said, do you show them the strategy and then show them the ad? They go, no, actually, we just show them the ad. They said, did you ever think that instead of trying to get to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 people, maybe you should just test the ad, run some research against consumers, take that time and figure that out back against your strategy? No, that wasn't it. The challenge that we're all going to have today is that we can't look at the ads anymore. In the world of programmatic, in the world of data, in the world of targeting, in the world of mobile, it's not going to work anymore. That's a big issue. It even gets more interesting. This is mostly recently from Allstate. In fact, just released last week. No targeting, video, no targeting. That video with contextual targeting were twice as much. This is really bad. I'm going to take a moment here. I saw my CMO board member present on stage with his agency client head. He asked her, what was the return on investment from behavioral targeting for Allstate? What did she think? First off, she didn't want to answer the question. He asked again. She still kind of deferred off, said, it depends. He asked again, and the third time she said probably 20 to 30% increase in performance. She was wrong, 300%. What is the value of combining that messaging, that creative, with data? It matters a lot. This is the fundamental, most important thing I'd like you to take away from today. The world of marketing has changed. The old ways aren't going to do it anymore. We can't do that. Now, so much so that for Allstate, that we know that Allstate should have spent 13% in mobile. We know that. That was the optimized level. That produced a 4% increase in sales for them. That's not bad. That's a free 4%. That didn't cost us any more. More interesting, though, is that when we got mobile just right, its percentage in the mix didn't go up a lot, but it produced double the impact in sales. Just by getting mobile right, just by rebalancing the mix to more behavioral targeting, more contextual targeting, and a few other things in their campaign told them that it makes a big difference. So much so that when we summarize all the campaigns, as I mentioned earlier, 10 to 15%, we're now saying that you probably should be spending upwards of 20% in your budgets. When you do mobile right, it produces on average a brand increase, brand impact, change in attitude, 17%, or sales increase, 7 to 25%. And as I said last year on this stage with Tom Daly from Coca-Cola, wacky Brazil, what happened here? A 60% increase in sales. It's such an anomaly, and listen, we went back and double-checked the data again and again, and we still can't tell you exactly why. Concentration of audience, maybe income, I don't know. It's Coca-Cola. It's not that special a product. It doesn't require that much spend. But something was really happening here in Brazil around mobile that was so much more impactful than anything else we saw. Now, the side point to this, too, is I just want to give thanks, because we strongly encourage you to pick up and do studies here. These are the people who develop these studies, at least in the U.S. If you have an interest in sort of forming a consortium to do that, we strongly encourage you. Creative, I don't really want to spend a lot of time on. We run Smarties, if you don't know. It's a big awards program. We actually have more entries than Cannes Lions, and there's a case study-based database. But creative is a whole other topic, so I want to skip that just in the interest of time.
I think it's time I got my own cell phone.
Phones are expensive. Wouldn't you rather get a tattoo?
Dad, I think it's time I got my own cell phone.
I think it's time you got a job.
Dad, could I have my own cell phone?
Worried your kids will run up a huge wireless bill?
What? I can't hear you.
Okay. Now with T-Mobile, families get more minutes to share.
Sometimes when I talk to marketers, I feel like that's the conversation I'm having, right? Like the data should be enough, right? You should get it. You should just jump on. Like it seems so obvious to me, having done all this research and having that methodology explored, but it's not enough. The fundamental problem you have is that you don't have the tools to make decisions for what I just told you is happening. You don't. Then the tools you have, I've looked at them. Not only do they suck, you hate them. So last year we formed a thing called MAT, Marketing Attribution Think Tank. It is going to dig in to, in particular, the concept of multi-touch attribution and really figure out what does it take to produce ads and campaigns that really work in real time and adjust. And there's a complexity of that. We'll come back to that in a moment. Now, for those of you who don't know, this is where I'm going to start to see the eyes glaze over here a little bit, because now we're into the weeds of multi-touch attribution. It is, if you don't know, the science of advanced analytics on user-level data to allocate proportional credit across a granular list of media touch points across many and hopefully all online and offline channels, leading to a desired consumer outcome. Whew, that would do it. Listen, this is it, though. Understand what multi-touch attribution is. Learn this. Work with us to learn it. Now, we've done a lot of work over just what has been now the last 9 to 10 months. There's been an incredible process to dig in and understand that space. There's a lot of complexity to it. The first thing we learned is that 34% of marketers have multi-touch attribution solutions. However, when we asked that 34% what they thought of their solution, everybody know what Net Promoter Score is? Understand Net Promoter Score? You know, Net Promoter Score is you take how many people like you and how many people hate you and you minus that, okay? And usually, a good Net Promoter Score would be 10, 20. I think Tesla and Apple are like in a 80 or 90. Like they're way out there. Okay. The net promoter score for multi-touch attribution solutions was a negative 29. Marketers have it, they hate them. But it is the future because 40% people are about to install that solution. Your competition, if not you yourself, are about to get a multi-touch attribution solution. It's important that you jump after this. Now, I can give you a lot of data that we've collected around sort of the dynamics of that. But fundamentally, people use it on less than their campaigns. We're monitoring all this data. They use it, they think that it drives some incremental ROI, and yet they're just not really convinced where it's at. But those of us who understand the inner workings of some of these systems actually do know that this is the only answer. This is where the world's got to get to. We need to employ tools and measurement techniques that allow us to measure the impact of an individual ad and the return on investment and balance against that. Because as Smox demonstrates, that's where the gains come from getting that right. Now, last year we put out a series of big landscape reports. We create scoring tools. If any of you are interested in installing or considering multi-touch attribution, write to me, write to Fabiano, get to Thais, get to anybody at the MMA, and we will help walk you through that process. It is critical because it is the only thing that's going to save your company in the future. It is that important, which is why we at the MMA, listen, I'm not just trying to solve an MMA, a mobile problem. There isn't a mobile problem. There's a marketing problem. A mobile is an opportunity. That's it. That's what the MMA is here to do, to guide into that unknown world and to do some of the work that you can't do. And specifically, I would encourage you to join working groups that we formulated just literally. In fact, they're actually meeting at the end of this month in the first week of May for the first time. Those groups will tackle issues like data quality and walled gardens. Now, I could go on and on about multi-touch attribution, but fundamentally understand that the dynamics of a trade association is to bring a community of people together to activate into a new future. That's what we do. That's why you're here, hopefully. That's why you've gotten involved, or you're members of the MMA, is to work to really do that. You can look at some of the brands that have already chosen involved. If you'd like to sign up for these groups, please, I encourage you to do so. I'm leaving that. Write me if you don't get that URL or you want to know more, and we'll help you do that. But you must learn multi-touch attribution. Marketing mix modeling, many of your companies do that, won't do it anymore. Won't do it anymore. And I'm not here to denigrate the providers of those solutions, but it's just not oriented to the future of the world. This is what Fabiano wanted me to come and share with you today. Okay? So, all pretty easy peasy, right? Pretty simple. Just follow what is a simple 6-step program and you'll be all set. The problem is that we're finding also that organizational design is a big issue here. That companies are not prepared for an agile future, a future in which they're making decisions on redoing that campaign today based on results yesterday. They're not ready. You're not ready for that. So I haven't, in fact, you're the first people to know this. I haven't told this to anywhere. And in fact, I only got agreement from my chairman 3 weeks ago on this. We are this year launching a to-be-named think tank focused on marketing organizational design. Marketer organizational design. We're working with Georgia Tech Business School. It's one of the top business schools in the U.S. Coca-Cola funded these efforts. We're working with Forbes and their CMO council, and the MMA are coming together, and others will probably be invited to participate to help you rethink how you rethink your organization. Because that's what's standing in the way. Silos, fiefdoms, lack of capabilities, lack of knowledge, lack of insight are all going to negatively impact your ability to go forward. I mean, in many regards, and just kind of in closing, I would say that, the issue is, at some level, we could have just watched a video like this and said, wow, mobile probably matters. Right? Because he was so gripped by this, he didn't see that there was a pool. And by the way, if you've seen me present this video before, I've said this, he worked there. He knew where the pool was. It wasn't like it was unknown, but he was so captivated. TV doesn't do that. Radio doesn't do that. Magazines don't do that. Outdoor, thankfully, doesn't do that. Nothing does that. Internet doesn't even do that. not in the way that mobile does. There's a new relationship that consumers have with this device. I think predominantly that's why you're here, and I implore you to sort of work with the MMA in trying to figure that out in the future. Thank you very much, everybody. Appreciate it.